Hello, my Aloha tribe, and welcome to the Aloha Perspective, where you get a little bit of something and a whole lot of everything. Happy Thursday. I am on take 3 of this show today. The first one, I had no audio and I had no idea what happened. The second one, something was clicking in my head, and I looked down and I realized what the problem was. And I have to tell you that I would have a talk with my production crew, but that would be me. So my mic died. And unfortunately, because it's a wireless mic, I guess having the thing hooked in, it didn't pick anything up. So let's try this again, okay? The funny thing is, I just went through that whole thing. You probably didn't even know, but that's okay. That's okay. It's like being tested, right? Oh, yeah. You know what? This is a good example. So we'll revisit this in a second. So day 9, self-love from lifehack.org, under 34 self-love practices, or again, I'm not really clear on the title, but something like that. So remember who you are. Remember who you are. You have endured a lot, yet you have overcome it, growing stronger with each experience. Please keep in mind who you are. You should welcome adversity because it will make life more fascinating and help you go where you want. Experiencing feelings like self-doubt is natural, but don't let it overconsume your thoughts. So I also added to that, what if trauma happened before you had a chance to find out who you are? If that's the case, pick a point in your life, maybe that one perfect moment, right? Don't worry about what happened before. Don't worry about what happened after. Just that one moment where you were blissful, where you were happy. And go back to that place. Go back to that person. Maybe it's been a long time. Maybe it's been several years. But that doesn't matter, because that really could be the core of who you are and who you want to be. And that's all of us, right? We change on a daily basis. But going back to the fact that I mentioned that this is my take 3, um, there's a time for me that this would have driven me nuts. And there are days that can be so bad. If you have a dinged up mental health, sometimes this something this small can tank your day. Can tank your day. And I say that with a smile, but it's just because I'm just kind of like, really? How is this happening? But that's the reaction I have now. In the past, it might have been, I might have been in tears, or I might have been like, oh my God, I don't remember what I said. And then I'd be panicking because I didn't remember what I said, instead of just doing a completely fresh new show, and maybe something that I talked about before might come in. There's one thing I did talk in the initial, take 1 of this, that I'm going to really cover. And, maybe that was the whole point, right? To just get right to the point so you don't lose anybody. Self-love is like construction, okay? You're in construction, you do, I believe it's called grading. All right, I know I worked in it for a construction company for 15 years, but I never really associated with the terms because I was on more the business side. But I believe it's grading, right? When you see all the tractors out there and they're leveling everything out, because you cannot build a house on an uneven foundation, right? What's going to happen? It's going to crack, or it's going to be lopsided, or you're going to put a wheelie chair in the house, and your family member's going to go flying in another direction because what? It's not flat. It's an unsturdy, unlevel, unbalanced foundation. So when we prepare our self-love, that's kind of the grading, right? But think about it, self-love, an unhealthy self-love. Think about it as like a house of cards, okay? And that house of cards, when I was a kid, I don't know how to play poker. Solitaire can get very boring very fast. And, I'm an only child. Well, growing up, I was an only child. Now I just adopt my siblings. But so you're limited to what you can do. So I used to just build things, right? Build little towns, little tent towns. And sometimes I would get really ambitious and I'd build a house of cards. Now, we've heard that term before, because a house of cards is very shaky. It's very unstable. And a house of cards, if somebody opens the door and you're in the wrong place, it's going to fall down. Somebody walks by, it's going to fall down. You pull one card out or you make one wrong move, it's going to fall down. Okay? So we don't want to build our self-love like a house of cards. We want it to have that steady foundation, that sturdy foundation, that foundation that, even when something tries to shake it off its foundation, it's still there. It's something we can go back to. Right? And in that, we build our self-love. To me, self-love is the foundation, in my personal opinion, the foundation of self-worth, self-care, self-esteem, self-respect, self-acceptance. In my experience of going through these different trials of self-love, these different series of self-love, my self-love has not only strengthened and gotten better, but I also see the improvement from the very first time I did it to where I feel like maybe I was just phoning it in because I thought, yeah, I've got this down, and then one thing was like, boom. I'll be honest with you. I've probably done this series about 5 times. The first 2 times, it was just one of those 30 days of self-love, just very normal things, take that selfie, love yourself, do the affirmations, set your boundaries, eat something, eat your favorite thing, or eat healthy today, or go for a walk. And those are great. Those are great. And those are also part of the 34 practices of self-love that are in this article. But what I wanted to do is the 3rd time I did self-love, I included shadow work, which is kind of a very Jungian thing. Carl Jung, Jung, if you want to look him up, with a C. Surprisingly with a C. But Carl Jung. And Carl Jung was... I'm never, it's hard for me to figure out his relationship with Freud, if he was a student, and then a colleague, or if they were just colleagues. But at some point, their approaches to psychotherapy changed. Now, this isn't going to be about you going to therapy. This isn't going to be about therapy itself. I'm just explaining the Carl Jung thing because his whole theory was that we need to go deep inside. We have to do the shadow work. I always thought shadow work was a metaphysical thing. Turns out shadow work, and if it was a metaphysical thing and he just borrowed from it, I don't know. But in therapy and psychotherapy, shadow work is a Jungian thing. It is going deep inside ourselves to figure out what needs to be healed and heal it. Don't shame yourself, don't make yourself feel bad about it, but instead show yourself compassion and empathy. Show yourself kindness. Show yourself the same thing you would show somebody else going through what you're going through. For me, my shadow work ended up needing to heal my inner child. My inner child was just, I would call it this little, I used to call her the feral floof, and I named her that because it was cute, but it was also very true. Inside, there was very much a feral inner child, and if you've ever had to deal with a feral animal of any sort, I had a feral cat, where she would either become overly defensive or she would just, shrink inside herself and hide. And that was a lot of work to get her out, just like it was a lot of work to heal my inner child. So, for me, remembering who we are is where we build that foundation. And like I said, if you never had the chance to really experience who you are before your trauma happened, if that is your story, then pick that one place. If you're not a person that had to deal with that, but you do struggle with your self-love, build that foundation. Build that foundation. Build that foundation. Make it so strong that no matter what happens, it's still there. Even if you have to rebuild that house, that foundation is still there. We're human. That is going to be a running theme through this. We are human. We are going to go through things that are going to test us to our core. We are going to go through life events that are going to really, really, make us have to show who we are and how we show up. And you get to decide how you show up. You get to decide if you are that person that reacts to everything like a feral floof, or if you react to things and just say, okay, well, or this isn't about me, this is about them. Maybe they're yelling at me, but it's not about me, it's about them. And then maybe you can help them through. You can guide them through whatever it is. Or, if you want, you can walk away. It is not your responsibility to fix somebody else. Only that person can fix themselves. And to me, it's not even fixing themselves, it's healing themselves. But you can hold space for them. You can sit there with them. You can tell them, look, I will sit here with you while you go through whatever you go through, but don't take it out on me, because this isn't about me. And if it is about you, then, go back and think, where did I misstep? I mean, if they give you an exact example, very recently I had a very good heart to heart talk with a very, very dear friend of mine. And I was basically told that I haven't been showing up. And they're going through something very, very, very trying and very taxing. And even and they recognized that I've been struggling, that I had been struggling, but they weren't wrong. I did stop showing up, and this is a person that has been with me for the longest, really, of anybody I've known that's not related to me. And I realize it's not that hard to show up. But had this been done before I did all my self-love, I would have probably been very combative. In fact, I think they expected me to be combative. And when I said, can I say something now? They're all, yeah, okay. And I think they were preparing to get, lashed back at. And all I said was, you're right, and I'm sorry. And I'm going to do better. And, it felt good when they said to me, I have noticed the change. And at first I had to write it in my calendar, check in with so-and-so, send so-and-so a text, send so-and-so, because sometimes I get so out of my head that I do forget. But as I remember how to re-embrace self-love, I remind myself that, self-love is something that comes from us. It comes from deep inside of us. But we also do have to remember who we are. We have to remember that outside of us is a whole nother world, that we have friends and family and people that care about us, that we also care about, and that we do need to show up for them. We do need to be there for them. And a lot of times we can do that by embracing that self-love, by, really setting that solid foundation. Because there are going to be days when people are going to come to you and you may not have what it takes to be what they need you to be. But when you have that self-love, you learn how to pour from a full cup, not an empty one. You cannot pour from an empty cup, right? You cannot be of service to somebody else if you have an empty cup. And what self-love does is it helps us fill our cup, so that when that person does come to us, even if it's a bad day, right, we can be there for them. We can say, okay, you know what, maybe I'm struggling, I'm struggling a little bit today, but what can I do for you? And I'm not saying you have to say that to them, but a lot of times for me, I will let them know, I'm not sure how good I'm going to be for you today because I'm struggling, but I really want to be here for you. So we can just sit here and be stupid on the phone or text or whatever. And then by that, I mean, just be funny, joking, haha, or you can just sit and hold space with one another. Or you can talk it through, each person takes a turn. Like yesterday, check in with yourself emotionally. Checking in with yourself emotionally is also about remembering who you are at the core. And it's about building and setting that sturdy foundation of self-love. Remember, when it talks about here, experiencing feelings like self-doubt is natural, but don't let it overconsume your thoughts. Don't forget, what we say is what we hear, it's what we process, and it's what we're going to see. And you have to decide if it's negative stuff that you want to see or positive stuff that you want to see. And if it's constantly negative, if you have that toxic verbiage just constantly coming out of your mouth. Self-love is definitely something that needs to be worked on. And like I said, when we build that sturdy foundation of self-love, it's going to lead to self-worth. It's going to lead to self-acceptance, to self-respect, to self-care. Self-care is like the twin to me to self-love. It's the younger twin, right? It's the second one that came out, because we need to take that self-care to really kind of keep that self-love strong and sturdy. So I hope this made sense, okay? Because it seems like I'm not talking about remembering who we are, but in a way, practicing that self-love is how we can check in with ourselves daily. It's how we remind ourselves, who we are every single day, who we show up to be for ourselves and for other people. And if we have the strength or the energy to show up for other people. I make no attempts to hide the fact that, sometimes I fall short as a friend or maybe even a family member sometimes. And I do my best. And my best probably hasn't been my best. I'm sure my best can be better, because I'm thinking about it now as I'm saying that. And it's like, yeah, I can see where I've fallen short with certain people, and we owe it to ourselves to keep that tight circle, right? I mean, there's a whole thing on it from a couple days ago, tighten your circle, from March 7th. Well, so that was last Friday. Tighten your circle, and the next one, be unique, forgive yourself. And if you have to do any of those things to remember who you are, it's okay. It's okay, because you are going to be okay. Remind yourself that you deserve compassion, empathy, and kindness. Show yourself these things. You are allowed, all right? Show yourself these things, because you do deserve that. Treat yourself like you would treat a person that you're holding space for, because that will also help with your self-love. That will help you set that foundation. And the more I embrace my self-love, and the more I clear up the shadow work that might be left for myself, the more I start to see things differently, and the less I react to things, my triggers have become less. My overreacting has become less. My just lashing out in anger is almost gone. I can't say it's totally gone, because I'm human. I'm gonna stumble from time to time, but for the most part, I've seen the changes. And the changes really came when, like I said, I did the shadow work series within the self-love that I did that one time. And I believe, if you want to find it on YouTube, it was somewhere in December of 2022, I believe, is when, around the time that I did the self-love shadow work, the Carl Jung version of it. So yeah, I love Carl Jung. I just, I have a book on him at my actual home, but that I haven't had a chance to read yet. But his works are fascinating. And just as a side note, I think what's super fun, right, is to know that he was alive just 10 or 20 years before I was born, and yet we learn so much from these people. You hear about people in history, and it's kind of like, whoa. I mean, Martin Luther King existed within a decade before I was born, 5 years before I was born. We have all these great people that we can look up to, that we can learn from, that show selflessness, and we learn how to become selfless when we learn how to embrace self-love. And were all these people perfect? Probably not. Probably not. We're not perfect. And I mean, like I tell people, I am perfectly imperfect, and I am perfectly happy with that. I am perfectly imperfect. But there was a time in my life when I had to be perfect. I had to control everything, because I was hurting. I did have trauma. And I kept thinking, well, there's not a person I can go back to, or not a place I can go back to, because, things happened and I never really got to truly discover who I was. But there was a moment in my life, Not a short moment, but you know, over the course of decades, it just becomes like a blip, right? But there was a time in my life that I remember where I had no cares, and I just kind of let go of being so serious all the time. And for a little tiny moment in my life, I let go of control. And I just, you know, and I realized that's a person that I am. That was me. That was me to the core. That's that person inside that needed to be, dug up, send in all of the archaeologists and dig her out. And there she was, ready to go. And that's who I still strive to be. I do my best to let go of control. I do my best to just kind of live in the moment. It's not always easy. It's not always easy. I know if you have a dinged up mental health like me, it can be very, very hard. But, for me, I check in with myself daily because I have to. And even if you do not have a dinged up mental health, I still think it's a good idea to check in with yourself daily. See where you're at. Yesterday's lesson was, check in with yourself emotionally. Sit down with that cup of whatever you want to drink and, just how was my day? Was it as great as I thought it would be? Was it better than I thought it would be? Was it just one of those days where I want to leave it in my past? And if that's the case, leave it in your past. Just let it go. Okay? So, I think that's it. So let's read this one more time. You have endured a lot, yet you have overcome it, growing stronger with each experience. Please keep in mind who you are. You should welcome adversity because it will make life more fascinating and help you go where you want. Experiencing feelings like self-doubt is natural, but don't let it overconsume your thoughts. Do not let it overconsume your thoughts. Remember, what you say is what you hear, it's what you're going to process, and it's going to end up being what you see. So make it kind. Okay, especially if you're talking to yourself. Make it kind. So I hope everybody has a wonderful, wonderful day today. Hopefully this time the audio worked. Like I said, I am the production crew, so that was all on me. I guess I should make sure my equipment works beforehand, eh? So, again, have a wonderful, wonderful day, everybody. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you back here tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Pacific Time, Facebook Live. All lives are public under Shelley Marie Lucas. And you can find me across the series and span of the social media universe, either under my name or under the Aloha Perspective. So, also the full replay on this I do upload it daily to YouTube. So again, have a great day, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you tomorrow.